Do GitHub, Git, repositories, cloning or forking a GitHub repository sound like made-up words to you? Then you are not alone. 80% of Vibe coders do not have GitHub accounts, and the few that do can't even use them properly. If any of this sounds like you, then you're watching the right video. Hi, I am Dimufo Aretas, an experienced full-stack developer and coding instructor. Today, I'm excited to show you how to create a GitHub account from scratch, create your first repository, and also show you a bit about cloning and connecting your computer to GitHub. This video is divided into 3 main parts. In part 1, we are going to look at creating a GitHub account and our first GitHub repository. In part 2, we're going to install and configure Git on our local computers. I have done the steps for both Mac operating system and Windows operating system. Finally, we're going to create an SSH key and connect our local computers to our GitHub accounts. Please do not be scared. If you do not understand any of these terms, I'm going to explain them in full. In the first part of this tutorial, we're going to be looking at 3 things. First of all, we're going to see what Git and GitHub are. Secondly, we're going to then create a GitHub account. And finally, we're going to create our first repository. Are you ready? So what is Git and GitHub? Well, think of GitHub as a place where you keep your code. So most developers use GitHub to store their code and track changes to the code. Having a GitHub account helps you to be able to share these repositories and coding files with other developers. Git, on the other hand, is a tool for managing GitHub repositories. So Git is like the middle person which lives on your computer, and you use Git to be able to send changes to your repository online. So whenever you make changes to your local code, that's code on your machine, you use special Git commands, and Git takes these commands and sends the files and makes the changes to the repository online. And it helps to track the time, track who made the changes, and track what changes were made. Through this process, you are able to even reverse whenever you make mistakes or you have errors in the code which you are working on. And this is called version control. So Git and GitHub help you to control code versions of your project. Now, the last word I've used very often is a repository. And a repository, or a repo in short, is simply the code in one GitHub project. So whenever you create a new project and save it and push it to GitHub, that project is called a repo. It can be one file, and it can be made up of several files and folders. So now that we know all about the benefits of having a GitHub account, we know what Git and GitHub and repository are, let's dive into the practical steps of creating our very own GitHub account. I hope you're with me. Now, before we begin creating our GitHub account, make sure you have an email ready to which you have access, because after we create the account, you're going to be sent a code to confirm the account. So GitHub is a very, very secure place, and they do their best to ensure a lot of security, because code and projects are very, very sensitive information. Head over to your favorite browser. I'm using Chrome, and search for github.com. So on github.com, you are going to be on the GitHub landing page, and from here, you can either enter your email into this field and sign up, or you can use the sign up button to the top right corner of your browser. When I do so, I land on the sign up form. So this is the GitHub sign up form, and you can either continue with Google, where you automatically be signed up using your Google information, or you could put in your email address, password, choose a username and a country, and of course create the account. I'm going to do all of this in the background, and when you are done, join me in the next steps. I hope you succeeded in putting in the right information and confirming your account. Congratulations, you now have a GitHub account. So you are among the top 10% of Vibe coders who now have GitHub accounts. Congratulations once again. Right now, our next step is creating a first repository. So I'm going to walk you through the simple steps. It's manual for now, of creating a file on GitHub. So this is the manual process. This is not how you are going to always do it, but we are going to just create this repository in order to have something to clone when we create our secure connection between the GitHub account and our local machines. So let's dive right in. Presently, we are on the GitHub dashboard. As you can see here, that's the GitHub logo and the dashboard. And of course, there's a menu here which is collapsible. We won't look at this for now. If you head over on the bar, this navigation bar or the topmost bar, to the extreme right corner is a small avatar that's automatically created by GitHub, and that is your user profile image. In the future, when you change this image, whatever you replace it with is going to always show here. And from here, it's also a menu where you can click on to view your profile, your repositories, and a lot of other information which is above the scope of this video. Click on your profile, and you're going to land on your own GitHub profile. In order to create a repository on GitHub, you come to the top left corner. Now there are several ways to do this, but I'm going to show you the simplest way. So you come over to repositories, to this repositories tab. It's under your GitHub logo and username. So this is your username. You click on repositories, and you can see that you have no repository, or I have no repository, and it's stated here. So in order to create a new repository manually, remember, this is just a one-time process, and we are just doing this to test the cloning process. All right. So I'm going to click on new. And when I do, I land on the new repository creation form. There are two fields or two steps which we need to complete in order to create a repository. In the first step is the general step, where you choose the owner of the repository and you choose the name for the repository. GitHub also suggests some names, but I recommend choosing a descriptive name so that it identifies and separates your repository from the others. But for today, we are just going to call it my first repo. And if the name is available, it's going to be shown at the bottom. If not, GitHub would tell you this name is unavailable. So you can't have two repositories of this with the same name in your GitHub account. All right. Now, for the description, it's optional, but I do encourage you to try to write a little description. You can replace it later, and this will appear in the README file that we will auto-generate in this process. So I already wrote something down. I said my first ever GitHub repository. Yay! In the second step of creating a repository manually, you have public or private. Now we are going to see this in the future when we connect our GitHub repository to our favorite AI vibe coding platform. But public simply means anyone on the internet can see this repository. All right. But for the purpose of this video, I am going to save it, or let's save it as private. So it's just for us, just for testing purposes. And of course, we will have a README. This README file is going to automatically take the name of the repository as the title, and then the description as text within the README file. For the rest of the information, you can ignore it for now. It's out of the scope of this video. Now let's create our very first repository. When you're ready, hit the Create Repository button, which is found here at the bottom. And after a few seconds, GitHub is going to create your repository for you. Fantastic! Wow! You now have your first GitHub repository. This was manual, but it helps you to see how all of this works. Whenever you connect your vibe coding tool to your GitHub repository, this is the process that is automatically done in the background to make sure that all the files from your coding project are transferred to your GitHub account. So from now on, you are able to connect your vibe coding tools to a GitHub account. You'll be able to fork other repositories. You'll be able to collaborate with your technical partners, and you'll be able to track the changes and secure your code. Congratulations once again on creating your first GitHub repository and GitHub account. Whoop, whoop, whoop. You are among the top 10% of vibe coders who are taking their vibe coding game to the next level. Now, you know about Git and GitHub. You own a GitHub account and you have your first repo. What is the next step? The next step is to install Git and configure it on your local computer in order to be able to connect your local computer to your GitHub account, which you just created. I would like to mention the fact that the steps in this video are from this website, vibedevs.de, and the blogs are here with all the steps outlined. So if you missed any of the steps, the link is in the description. You can go to any of these blog posts and you're going to find the exact steps explained in this video. So be sure to visit this website and read more about these steps and setup process. Right, let us continue. Now in part 2, like I've said over 100 times, we are going to install and configure Git on macOS and also on a Windows operating system. So I'm going to begin with a Mac operating system because it's a bit, it has more steps than Windows for Windows users. So Mac users, are you ready? Welcome to the step-by-step process of installing Git and configuring it on your Mac operating system. So if you're using an Apple computer, MacBook Pro or Mac, or an Apple MacBook Air, make sure to head over to official Brew website and get this installer. So this is the official installation software that is going to help you to install Git on your Mac operating system. The detailed steps are outlined in this resource, which I'm going to include in the description. So it's just a blog post that is talking about how to install and set up Git on your local computer for non-technical vibe coders. All right. When you are done with the installation of Brew, then we are going to now proceed with installing Git. So on the Mac operating system, in order to install Git, we use Brew, and that's why I recommended that you install Brew first of all. And once Brew is installed, we are going to now use Brew to install Git, and this is the command. So this link is in the description. Head over to the blog post, and then we are going to copy each link step by step. So this first command actually installs Git into our local computer. So I'm going to copy it by clicking on this button and then heading over to my terminal. This is my terminal, opened to the left hand side. I paste in the command. This command is going to run and install Git onto my local computer. But since I already have Git installed, I'm not going to do that again. Then, when you are done with the Git installation, because it's not going to take too long, to find out if Git successfully installed, you need to run git -- or -- version. This tells you the version of Git that you have installed. For me, I have version 2.39.5 as of the date of this recording. Maybe later on you will have a higher version. The next step of our process of setting up Git is to configure Git. This configuration, like I said, is going to help. I'll explain in the third part. It's going to help our online GitHub account to identify and work with our local computer. So Git uses this for identification purposes. So we're going to set a global user because for me, I'm the only person using my laptop. So I'm going to copy this command, paste it here into my terminal, and replace your name with my name, with your name. All right. So make sure that you write your name here. So I'll do that. Yeah. And then hit enter when you're done. So the command is git config global user. So we are telling Git to configure a global username, which is this name. So it is configured. The next configuration is the email. So Git needs your email, the same email address you use to create the GitHub account. So I'm going to add mine. So we are telling it in this second command, Git, please configure a global user email and replace this with your email. Make sure that the quotes stay in place. All right. So I'm going to use this email address. I'm going out of the email. Use my arrow keys to wipe out the middle part. Then I type in my email address, which I'm using for this demonstration. When I'm done, here I hit enter. After you have configured the global user and email, you could always verify by using this command. So verifying Git configuration, this command. So I'm going to copy it, paste it into my address and hit enter. And as you can see, the username and the email are both configured as demonstrated here in the block 2. Finally, what I'm going to do as a bonus is to set up the default branch to be main, because most at times there are some vibe coding tools, like when I use Firebase Studio, it gives a default Git branch of master. But because of societal shifts, GitHub recommends using main as the default branch name. So that's why we are now going to tell our local Git that please, we are configuring a global initial default branch to be main. So when I paste, I'm going to copy the command and I paste it here and I explain again. So we're saying Git, please configure a global initial default branch main. So when you create your repository and you are doing your first push, or you are telling your online account that, hey, I have a repository for you, the branch which Git is going to automatically now use is going to be the main branch. So I've hit enter and now the main branch default branch is configured. So it's optional, but I totally recommend it. So congratulations on setting up your Git and GitHub accounts. And in the next step, we are going to now see how we connect the two. The next minutes, I'm going to walk the Windows users how to do the same on a Windows operating system. So the Mac users can take a short break, or they skip over the next minute and head over to part 3. See you in the next one. So in this video, I'm going to show the Windows users how to install Git Bash on a Windows operating system. So I've just clicked on the download button and the download process is going on. I'm on gitforwindows.org, link in the description. Once it's done, it's going to indicate, and then you simply click on the executable file, and the installation process is going to take a few seconds and then begin. So this is the installation window, and I'm going to click on install. All you have to do is follow the prompts on the installation window and you'll be all done. And as you can see, the installation process has begun, and it normally doesn't take too long to install. So now that the installation process is complete, I'm simply going to click on finish. But first, I'm going to check off the view release notes because I do not wish to see the release notes. So right now we are going to launch our Git Bash. You do so by clicking on start, and then you search for Git Bash, and then you see the Git Bash on the list of applications, so it's installed. And once you click on it, you now have a terminal with which you can run the same commands as we did with the Mac operating system. So I encourage you to head over to the resource in the description, and you'll be able to grab the resources and then just copy the links as I'm doing and then follow along. So that is the process, and I hope it's easy for you and you face no challenges. Let's now see how we could set up and connect our local Git to the online GitHub accounts. See you in the next one. If you have any questions, as usual, please let me know in the comment section. In this last part of our tutorial for today, we are going to now create our SSH key and connect our local GitHub setup to a repository, our GitHub account, and I'm going to show you how to get your code of information from your GitHub account to your local machine. If you are excited, then that means you also feel my excitement. Let's proceed. Now, what is an SSH key? SSH simply stands for Secure Shell, and it is a special envelope that keeps your messages secured. So online, it's not only a GitHub thing, but it's a common way for secured information to be transmitted between two machines or two computers that are communicating. And this special envelope keeps the message secured, and it cannot be, even if it is hacked, it cannot be decoded. So SSH is very secure, and that is what GitHub or Git uses to send your code or other information to your GitHub repository. So this connection is made secure by SSH, the secure shell. So right now, what we are going to do is create an SSH key and then add it to GitHub and then test the connection between our local computers and our GitHub account. Let's proceed. So in this last practical part of our tutorial, I'm going to show you how to connect your GitHub account to your local computer. And finally, we are going to do a test clone. So you're going to know what cloning a repository means. Now head over to the resource with the link in the description, this blog which has all the steps, and let's do this step by step. Windows users can use Git bash and they need the same commands as the Mac operating system users. So the same commands that I'm putting into my terminal right now, if you put into Git bash, you get the same results. So the first step is checking for existing SSH keys. So I'm going to check. Of course, I know I have SSH keys, but just check to see if you also do. And if you don't worry, we're going to generate new ones from scratch. So I'll paste the command into my terminal. So this command simply verifies if there are SSH keys. And as you can see, yes, I have SSH keys. Nonetheless, I'm going to proceed to generate a new one, and this new one, we will use it to connect to GitHub. So the next command we need is this one, the SSH key gen command. I'm going to copy it, paste it into my terminal, and replace this placeholder email with my real email. Yep, and it's done. So right now the terminal or the process is asking me for a file to save the key. So I'm going to just use the default location by pressing enter. So just press enter, and then because I already have pre-existing SSH keys, I'm going to take yes, so that it overrides the existing keys. Okay, so I'm going to hit yes, Y, and then I hit enter. It's asking for a passphrase, and I recommend at this stage do not enter any passphrase, because each time you make a git commit or a change to your code, you will need to put in a passphrase, and we do not want that. So I'm going to hit enter for no passphrase and enter again, and a key has been generated, a public key has been generated and also saved in this file. And our next step is adding this key to our agent and then asking it to show us the key, which we are going to copy and then we add to GitHub. So just 3 more steps. Step 1, we copy this command, the eval. This command evokes the SSH agent. Let me clear the terminal so that I have more space. Clear. Then I paste what I copied. And then I hit enter. And now the agent is active. I'm going to tell the agent that, okay, it should add the SSH key to its files. Boom. Identity added. And it has been added with this email address in this location. And the final thing I'm going to do is now ask it to show me the key. And here we are. That is the SSH key. I hope you were able to follow along. If I was too fast, you can pause the video or you go back and then you see what I did. Our next step is now copying this key. I'm going to copy it and pasting it into GitHub. So I'm going to make my window bigger so that you see what I'm doing. So on GitHub, I'm going to click on my profile picture, the one on the top right. Remember where it is, right? This one. I'll click on it and then I move down to settings. Clicking on settings takes you to a window where you can edit your profile. You can update your profile with a bio, with a username, email addresses, and links to all your social profiles. But that's above the scope of this video. What we are looking for is located on the left hand side on this list, and we are looking for SSH and GPG keys. which I'm going to click on. So click on it. When you click on it, you now arrive on a window where you need to add your SSH key, which we just copied, to GitHub. So I'm going to click on this button located on the top right corner, new SSH key, the green one. And now I have the add new SSH key window. On this window, I recommend giving your key a title. So as you can see, I have MacBook 5 Dev as a title for my SSH key. So think about a nice name which distinguishes it, because you may sooner or later have more SSH keys from different computers. But if you have just one computer, it's okay. I'm going to now paste the SSH key which I copied. Make sure you copied the key along with the email address. So this is the complete key. It begins from SSH and ends with an email address. And then you take add key. All right. So it's asking for my GitHub login information. And I'm going to do that. Then I confirm. Amazing. So we have successfully added our SSH key to GitHub. And the next thing which we're going to do, which is the last thing on our terminal, or last but one, is to test if the connection was successful. So I'm going to go back to our article. And then this is the command that we need. It's under 0.6 under adding SSH key to GitHub. So 0.6 is this command, SSH minus capital T git@github.com. So I'm going to copy it, and when I paste it here, great, so it worked this time. I hit enter, and boom, my terminal or my computer says hi and gives me my GitHub username, and says you have successfully authenticated, but GitHub does not approve, or GitHub does not provide shell access. There is no problem. So long as we are authenticated, it means we can now clone a repository. Congratulations on coming this far. I know for someone doing it for the first time, it seems complicated, but it's a one-time process, and once you have done this, you never have to think about it again. So this is really a huge step in the right direction, and you are taking your vibe coding game to the next level. And to prove that, let's now clone a GitHub repository. So this step, which I'm about to show you, you can always do it whenever you find a repository on GitHub that you like to clone and have it on your local machine. So I'm going to head back to my profile picture, top right. I'll click on my repositories because I would like to demonstrate it with the repository that we created earlier. All you have to do to clone a repository is you head to the repository, and then you hit on code SSH, and then you copy this link. So SSH, and then you copy, because of course we could do the HTTPS, but HTTPS is not secure, and there's GitHub CLI, that is the command line interface, which you could also use, but for this video we're focusing on SSH. So copy it, and now watch what happens. I am going to clone that new repository which we created. I'll make my link big. So when you clone a repository, you actually have a copy of the repository and you have a connection to that repository. So if you clone a repository and have a copy of the code on your computer, each change that you make is being tracked by Git. And when you are done, you tell Git to add the changes, you give a nice commit message, and then you push to GitHub. And once you push, Git is going to now tell GitHub what you have changed and how it's going to integrate it into the GitHub repository to update it. To clone a repository using Git, you simply call on Git. You say Git and say, hey Git, I wish to clone a repository and Git asks, okay, which repository do you wish to clone? You simply paste the link which you copied, the SSH link, and once you hit enter, it tells you cloning and then the name of the repository, and in this case it's called my first repo, and then some other terms, and once it's done it tells you 100% done. I hope this worked for you. Congratulations, and you are now the top 10% global vibe coder. All right. So this tutorial was really a little bit technical, but it's a one-time setup. I hope you made it up to this time, and please, if you're new to the channel, I will be very grateful if you could subscribe, if you could also hit the notification bell so that each time I create wonderful, insightful tutorials like this one, step by step for beginners, you always get notified and up your vibe coding game. Happy vibe coding, and see you in the next video. Have a fantastic day or evening or whatever time you are watching this video. See you in the next one.